Assalamu alaikum and good greetings. So today we will be watching a video by FTD Speaks titled The Reality of Sharia Law Revealed Reaction. So he will be reacting to, I think, a video that will be revealing about the Sharia Law. Without further ado, let's watch.
FTD fam, welcome back to another episode. Okay, so this video we're going to be looking at Sharia law a little bit closer.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I
Alaikum
hope you are
assalam.
well. What comes to your mind when I say Sharia or Islamic law? Well, some people panic and have a heart attack when we use this word.
For
Not
real.
literally, but they do go crazy. Again, the media is to blame, which has made a business for itself to malign Islam and Muslims.
Okay, to that point, I do not disagree, but I think if all Muslims have a default, way of pointing fingers, and totally, especially absolutely not reflect, and what about us? What is our function, right? Because we know for sure there will be some parties that do not want to certain things to be known, either because they have an agenda or it's just because of money, ratings, etc., right? So we are not judging the intentions, but that's the reality. That's one thing, but another thing is, but what about us? We have like how many billions of Muslim, and aren't we doing anything? Why are we not speaking about it, sharing about it, shed some light about it? So that's my personal feeling about this, because I'm just from a Muslim community. I'm quite concerned at the level of some Muslim, just every issues is the Jews, every issues this is Illuminati, every issues. Is that the way that the Prophet Muhammad SAW teach us? Is that every issue pointing fingers? We do not see that, right? We always see that, are we playing our role first? No, normally that's the default.
What is Sharia? Is it chopping hands, stoning men and women? No. The Sharia means a way to watering a hole or flowering a spring. In Islamic terminology, it's God's law. It governs aspects of everyday life in Islam, including religious rituals. There are 5 main objectives of Sharia, Maqasid al-Sharia. 1. The preservation of human life. 2. The preservation of faith. 3. The preservation of intellect. 4. The preservation of wealth. 5. The preservation of family. The Sharia is not a law code printed and bound in volumes. It's the idea of God's law. Like other broad legal concepts like American law or international law, the Sharia is a unified whole that contains within it tremendous diversity.
Okay, so I think even within Muslim community, now, okay, to put in perspective, why I always have this perspective, right? Because first and foremost, normally I assume most of my audience are from Muslim background or Muslim themselves, right? So that's why I always try to address them first, Muslim first, because we have a role to play, and if we haven't done that already, we should wake up, right? So that's why, because some Muslims they criticize me, right? Personally, said, why are you always seeing? Meaning, don't you acknowledge that there are some people that have certain agenda against Muslim? No, I acknowledge that reality, but if I'm talking with another Muslim and we are not doing anything at a coffee shop, and we see problem, we're not contributing anything, and we just say, yeah, this is the fault of that and that and that, right? So my concern is primarily on us, right? Just by doing that and saying that, are we safe in the hereafter? That's why my focus tend to be, I want to be safe in the hereafter. I want you to be safe in the hereafter. That's why my focus is that. If we want to take action and want to strategize, then obviously we have to consider all of these factors and okay, how to overcome this reality. But before that, my focus is always on, are we doing enough? Are we doing what we should do first?
Where does Sharia come from? Well, 4 sources. 1. Quran, Holy Book. 2. Sunnah, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's words and deeds. 3. Early Muslim application of the Quran and Sunnah. 4. Legal reasoning by a Muslim scholar. Number 1 and 2 are revealed by God. Number 3 and 4 are the human effort to channel revelation of God. Together, these 4 sources make up fiqh.
So it depends. Okay, on that one, I think if you want to academically discuss that 4 sources, I think it would depend on how you look at it, right? Because from that 4, actually 2 are sources, and the other 2 are, taking from the source, and then istidlal or something, like meaning that the process of connecting between the source and the reality, right? How this should be implemented here, right? So that's where the scholars come in, etc. So it's not a source in itself like this Quran and Sunnah, rather is but from the perspective of the application, of course it can also be seen as 4, because there are some certain specific things, not that many, but very specific things that the Quran and Sunnah already specified. If this happen, this exactly procedure should occur, right? But in most cases, it is not specified as such, right? It gives you the guidelines of what is just, etc., right?
Fiqh refers to the concrete applicable rules constructed through the sources of the Sharia. There are many topics it deals with: prayer, fasting, inheritance, Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca, property, and much more. Punishment is a small part of it.
Right.
Sharia teaches Muslims to abide by the law of the land as long as they can practice their faith. This falls into one of the intentions of Sharia, which is harmony and order.
Now, the focus there, because Sharia is wide, the focus examples given are mainly like personal ibadah, right? And I want to highlight that punishment is just small part of it, which is true. Because this is still early video, right? But I think it should be acknowledged as well what are other parts, etc., right? I think that should be acknowledged, meaning that a criminal law is part of the Sharia, although it's one small of the big domain of the Sharia, but that is one part of the Sharia, because some try to put it like try to hide as if it's insignificant.
Unfortunately, it is misunderstood, and there are a lot of people spreading misinformation from Sheikh Google. We need to understand how dangerous it is to talk about something we don't know about. Will you take medical advice?
Okay, Sheikh Google. Now, we live in a reality where Google enable us to search for information, right? And of course, it's a fortunate thing that we are having this access of information, but unfortunate is that sometimes some information is gonna be misinformation. Again, from our perspective, from our responsibility, because this is the reality, right? People will search for stuff, and some people will spread misinformation. The question is, are we spreading the right information? Because if we are not doing that, or we are not doing that enough, simply blaming the others does not cut it, right, from our responsibility.
From some layman on the right? No, you are right. You need to consult a qualified expert. It goes similar for any other issue. Religion is a very broad concept. It is not befitting for a journalist to come on television and spread misinformation by using misleading terminology. To give one example of a punishment, in 500 years of Ottoman rule, there was only one instance of stoning for adultery. Now, you know how media works. Astaghfirullah. May Allah forgive us. Ameen. If you want to learn about Islam, learn from qualified people. Ask Muslims. Don't go to non-Muslim websites intending to spread Islamophobia. Ibn al-Qayyim said, the Sharia is entirely justice, compassion, wisdom and prosperity. Therefore, any ruling that replaces justice with injustice, mercy with cruelty, prosperity with harm, or wisdom with nonsense is a ruling that does not belong to Sharia, even if it is claimed to be so according to some interpretations. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us deep understanding. Ameen.
First thing I want to say about this is that anyone who's not Muslim that has an issue with something they heard through Sharia law, the first thing should be going to Muslim legal experts, Muslim scholars, not somebody who has no idea about Muslim law. They may have just heard something about it or may understand it from a general perspective, but who is going to be the better source? Somebody who is a lawyer, has experience with various different cases, who went to school to study the law, how the law is applied, how it has been applied in the past, and how it could be applied also in the future in certain contexts that law ruling can be applied. You know, you'd go to a lawyer for that information. You wouldn't necessarily go to a graphic designer who may have an opinion about the law, and the graphic designer may know some law, but not to the degree of the understanding as a lawyer, somebody who has their credentials and has done the studying and has worked in the legal field. You know, they're just going to have a lot more knowledge when it comes to law, and that's in anywhere, even when it comes to Sharia. So that's the thing. You got to look at who are you listening to, who are the people that you're actually getting information from. And if you still go to the sources, the legal experts and the scholars, and the information they give you is you just don't like it, you don't necessarily like Sharia, okay, then reject it. You know, then you at least you have a more holistic view of Sharia. There's something you don't like in it, okay, you know, by all means dislike it, contend it. You have a right to do that. So that would be the first thing. And that's, again, in any case. We're just talking about Sharia because that's the topic of this video. But any law in any land, anywhere, you are free to contest it. There's a lot of laws in Canada that I don't like. I don't like them at all. But being a Canadian citizen, I abide by the law. And there's some laws I love, and I love doing those things. But other ones, I'm like, oh, you know, I gotta do this, okay, the law says it, so, you know, I'm gonna fall in line with it. And this video brought up the same thing too when it comes to Muslims. You know, they can live somewhere, the law of the land, follow it, as long as it allows them to practice their religion. Where I think a lot of the headbutting happens and the dispute happens with people judging Sharia law is, one, like I just mentioned, they're listening to the wrong people. They're not going directly to the source. Two, also what was mentioned in this video, that they focus on just the punishments. And every law in every country has punishments, but punishments is just a fraction of all the law that it contains. Really, law is to help govern society, govern people. And three, the third thing is that there's also a lot of judging and condemnation from Muslims to other societies, specifically in this case Western societies. So when people that live in Western societies hear that, they hear the judgment coming from Muslims about some of their laws and the things that are legalized and what's allowed, you know, their knee-jerk reaction is to push back and say, well, look, your book says this and your book says that. So that becomes a lot of the fuel for this constant headbutting that we see happening. You know, a lot of these videos oftentimes talk about, you know, Muslims and their clashes with the West, and things happening in the West that Muslims don't approve of, and things that Muslims do that the Western societies don't approve of. So it's literally like a back and forth tennis match. Bam, bam, bam. In many cases. Oftentimes though, you know, people don't really necessarily care that much. You know, in Western societies, there's a lot of Muslims who enjoy, you know, live great lives. They help out with the community, practice their religion. They're good people. I know some of them personally. I know a lot of good Muslim people. And also the flip side though, not everything in the Western society is corrupt and evil. You know, this Western society does a lot of things great, like allowing for freedoms of religions to be practiced. So yeah, I think if you look at these things, you know, number one, again, looking at who you're actually getting your information from.
Okay, what he said about, you know, Muslims' perspective about the West, certain Western countries, Western culture, etc., right? That also boils down to how we understand Sharia as well, I think, right? Because, for example, there are Muslims that when we talk about Sharia, the first thing that comes to mind is certain regulations, certain specific regulations where obviously those regulations are not being implemented in the West, and they see it as you know, the core problem, hence, you know, some of the statements. So yeah, that I think that's why some discussion about the Maqasid al-Sharia becomes important, especially for Muslim first, so that we understand what this is all about. And one okay, because obviously that video that he watched in the beginning is made by Muslim, right? And to spread, one is to spread awareness, but also I wouldn't deny any production would want to push certain narrative, right? And in doing so, sometimes certain issues are not highlighted as much. For example, some of the criticism of you know, specific, though it is small part of the Sharia, you know, punishment, but certain punishment, I think is best if it could be explained why is it as such, right? And I forgot what I want to mention, right? About certain type of punishment where, for those who understand how it works, you can see why that is just. But in a framework of how it works in the Western society, you just pick that final punishment and plug it here. Obviously we see how unjust it is, but in Sharia it's not like that, right? Because this is prescribed on the basis of the whole thing, the whole structure behind it, right? Or the foundation to it. If this all function and then this on top of it to protect certain things, you can see that it is beautiful. But if this is not there and then you just plug in all this punishment, plug into the whole different system, that's where you can see, you have the perception how problematic that is, right? So that's where, how to explain the whole thing before we go to that specific thing. Sometimes that's the missing discussion, I would say,
from when it comes to the law. And number two, not just focusing on the punishments and the negative, if you want to call it, the negative aspects of the law, looking at the law holistically and what else it provides. And three, you know, take it easy on the judgment. You know, the moment you throw out a judgment, there's going to be a judgment thrown back at you. So again, by all means, you have the right to protest any sort of laws that are in your society, in your religion. And in order to do that, you know, there are channels open up and available for you to do that. You just need to gain some sort of influence or some position of authority or power, or alert somebody that has the authority or power to really start making a change. But at the end of the day, spreading opinions throughout the internet isn't necessarily going to do anything. and even through the media. You know, you just got to be careful what you hear in the media. A lot of opinions are being shared, and they're shared as if they are facts, but really, who do you listen to? That's an important question that you got to constantly ask yourself, who you're getting your information from. All right, guys, so that's my 2 cents on this. Really hope that we can continue to move forward on this earth with more understanding of people and their rules and laws and regulations, and at the same time, you know, be free to vocalize our dissatisfaction with certain things, but never get it to the point that we condemn people for their practices, even though we may not agree with them, you know, because that just continues the perpetual fight here. You know, let's learn to understand people more and more and share information with people in love. And I know there's a thing of tough love, but as they say, you can catch more flies with honey than you can do with vinegar. So that's where I'm going to end this episode, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Okay, so that's it, and I think I do not have anything else to add. I have said a lot, I think. Thank you for watching. See you next time.